For 2 years, I sent her $2,000 every single month. I thought I was her man, her future, her only one. She called me husband and told me to trust her. Then one night in Bangkok, I walked into a bar and saw her sitting on another man's lap, her real boyfriend. My name is Patrick, I'm 52, and this is how I bought a love that was never mine. I remember the exact moment I first saw Thailand. I was sitting in this tiny cafe on Sukhumvit Road, nursing my third cup of coffee and watching the Bangkok chaos through the window. The heat was suffocating, even with the ancient air conditioner rattling above my head. I'd been in Thailand for exactly 4 days, and I felt more alone than I had in my entire life. I wasn't planning to open this wound tonight, but earlier this week, I received an email from a longtime viewer of this channel. He told me he'd been following along for months, quietly listening to every story, and finally felt brave enough to share his own. When I read his words, I felt my heart stumble. At first there was this jolt of recognition, that painful shock of realizing someone else had walked the exact same path of hope and betrayal. Then came a heavy sadness, because I could feel his loneliness seeping through every sentence, the same loneliness I once carried like a shadow. And finally, strangely, there was gratitude, because his courage to reach out reminded me why I keep telling these stories even when they hurt. To the man who wrote that email, thank you. And to every one of you watching this right now, I want to thank you too. Please, leave me a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. I love seeing those notes from all around the world. And if you've been here before, if you keep coming back video after video, I want to give you a super thank you. You're the reason I can sit here and bare my soul like this. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and join the conversation. Because tonight, I need to tell you everything. Let me take you back to where it all started. Then she walked over to my table, this beautiful Thai woman with the brightest smile I'd ever seen. You look sad, she said, in broken English, setting down a fresh cup without me asking. Why, handsome man, sit alone? I laughed despite myself. Nobody had called me handsome in years. Just taking a break from life, I told her. She tilted her head like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Life too short for sad. You stay Thailand long time? When I shrugged and said maybe, her eyes lit up. Then I teach you, be happy. Thailand good for lonely heart. Something about the way she said it made me believe her. Maybe it was her accent, or the genuine warmth in her voice, but for the first time in months, I felt like someone actually saw me. What's your name? I asked. Thailand, she said, sitting down across from me without invitation. But you call me Tan. More easy. She pointed to herself and giggled. And you? Patrick, I said. Patrick from Canada. Ah, Canada. Very cold, yes? Here always warm. Like my heart. She placed her hand over her chest and smiled again. That smile. It was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. I found myself grinning back at her like a teenager. We talked for 2 hours straight. She asked about my life, my family, what brought me to Bangkok. I told her about the divorce, about feeling invisible for the last 5 years, about how my own kids barely called anymore. She listened to every word, nodding and making little sympathetic sounds. When I mentioned being retired, she said, "Good man deserve good woman. Maybe you find here." The way she looked at me when she said it made my heart race. You think so? I asked. I know so, she whispered, reaching across to touch my hand. Thai woman, very loyal. When we love forever. By the time I left that cafe, I was already planning my next visit. The truth is, I came to Thailand running from everything I'd failed at back home. My marriage to Sandra had ended 3 years earlier, not with screaming fights or dramatic affairs, but with a slow, suffocating silence that made every day feel like drowning. We'd stopped talking, stopped touching, stopped pretending we were anything more than two strangers sharing a mortgage. When she finally asked for the divorce, I felt relief more than heartbreak. We haven't been happy in years, Patrick, she said over breakfast one Tuesday morning. Maybe it's time we stopped pretending. She was right, but that didn't make the loneliness any easier. After the papers were signed, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like other people's lives. My kids, Jessica and Mark, both in their 20s and busy with their own problems, called maybe once a month. Our conversations were awkward, forced, How's work, Dad? Fine. How's the apartment? It's fine. Everything was fine, except nothing was. I spent my evenings watching TV shows I didn't care about and wondering if this was all there was left. Then my buddy Jim told me about Thailand. It's different there, Pat, he said over beers at the Legion. The women actually appreciate a good man. Not like here, where they take everything for granted. I'd always dismissed those stories as pathetic fantasy, but after 2 years of eating frozen dinners alone, pathetic fantasy started sounding pretty good. When Thanyurat sat across from me in that cafe, really listening to my story, I felt something I hadn't felt in years important. Your wife very stupid, she said softly when I finished. Leave good man like you. I wasn't that good, I admitted. Maybe I was boring. Maybe I stopped trying. She shook her head firmly. No. Woman should make man feel like king. I see you, good heart. You just need someone who understand. The way she said it, with such conviction, made me want to believe her. You think you could understand someone like me? I asked. She leaned forward, her eyes serious. I already understand. You kind man with broken heart. I never break heart more. Only fix. When she said those words, I felt something shift inside me, like a door I'd kept locked for years had suddenly opened. The money thing started so naturally I almost didn't notice it happening. We'd been talking every day for 3 weeks. I'd call her from my hotel room, and she'd tell me about her shift at the cafe, about her family back in Iceland, about how hard life was for a single woman in Bangkok. My mama's sick, she told me one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. She need medicine, but I no have money. Work at cafe not pay much. My chest tightened hearing the pain in her voice. How much does she need? I asked. Oh, no, she said quickly. I not ask you money. You already so good to me. Just, I worry about mama. But I could hear her crying softly. Tan, how much? Maybe $2,000, but too much. I find another way. $2,000. Back home that was a car payment. Here, it was someone's life. I'll send it tonight, I said without hesitation. Really? The joy in her voice made my heart soar. You are angel. My guardian angel. When I went to the Western Union office the next morning, the clerk looked at me like I was an idiot. First time sending to Thailand? He asked. When I nodded, he shrugged. Good luck. But when Thanyurat called me that night, sobbing with gratitude, telling me how I'd saved her mother's life, I felt like a hero. You, my hero, she whispered. My heart belonged to you now, forever. That night, she came to my hotel. When she curled up against me afterward, tracing circles on my chest, she said the words that changed everything. One day, when you ready, we marry. I be good wife. Take care you forever. I stared at the ceiling, holding her close, and for the first time in years, I could picture a future that didn't feel empty. Is that what you want? I asked. More than anything, she whispered. But now I help Mama, we take slow, build trust, build love. The next morning, she made it clear this was going to be our arrangement. Every month I need help, she said over breakfast. For Mama medicine, for rent, for save money for our wedding. She took my hands in hers, but not like business, like husband help wife family, you understand? I understood perfectly. This wasn't paying for her company. This was investing in our future. Looking back, the warning signs were neon bright, but I painted them all as proof of her devotion, like the way her phone would ring at strange hours and she'd step outside to answer it. Who was that? I'd ask when she came back. Just my sister, she'd say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She worry about me too much. Or the time I called her at midnight and heard a man's voice in the background before she picked up. Who's there with you? I asked, trying to keep the suspicion out of my voice. My cousin, she said quickly. He fixed my air conditioner. Very late, I know, but he only free tonight. The explanation made sense, but something in her tone made my stomach twist. Can I talk to him? I asked, testing her. He no speak English, she said. Very shy man. Already go home. When I pushed her about it the next day, she started crying. Why you not trust me? She sobbed. I never lie you. Never. You think I bad woman? The tears broke my resolve instantly. No, baby, I'm sorry. I miss you so much. Sometimes I get jealous thinking about other men around you. You only man in my heart? She whispered. Please believe me. If you not believe, my heart break. I apologized for hours after that, sending flowers to her cafe the next day with a card that said, sorry for doubting the woman I love. But doubt is like a splinter. Once it's under your skin, it never really goes away. I started noticing other things too. How she never wanted me to pick her up from work. I meet you hotel better, she'd say. My boss not like I have boyfriend. Thai people very traditional. Or how she'd sometimes disappear for entire weekends. Visit my family, she'd explain, in countryside. No phone signal there. Each time, her explanations seemed reasonable. But reasonable explanations started feeling like carefully crafted lies. Still, when she'd curl up next to me and whisper, I love you, my Patrick, all my doubts would melt away. Love makes you stupid. I know that now. But back then, I thought love made me lucky. As months passed, our future became more real in my mind and more expensive in practice. I find perfect apartment, she announced one evening, showing me pictures on her phone. It was beautiful, modern, spacious, in a good neighborhood, but need deposit, maybe $5,000. I studied the photos, imagining us living there together. For both of us? I asked. Of course. Our home, where we start married life. The way she said, our home, made me feel like the luckiest man alive. I sent the money the next day. Then came the visa fees. If we marry, I need special papers, she explained. For travel to Canada with you. Very expensive process, maybe $7,000 total. $7,000 to bring my future wife home with me. It seemed like a bargain. We don't have to rush the Canada thing, I told her. Maybe I'll just stay here with you. Her eyes went wide with panic. No, you must go back sometime. See your children, and I want meet them. Want them love me like daughter. The thought of Thanurat charming my kids, of having a real family again, was irresistible. I sent the visa money in 3 installments. Meanwhile, my bank account was hemorrhaging. $2,000 a month for Thanurat, plus the apartment deposit, the visa fees, my own hotel costs, and daily expenses. I was burning through my modest pension and divorce settlement at an alarming rate. But every time I looked at our budget, I told myself it was temporary. Once we were married, once she could work legally in Canada or I moved to Thailand permanently, the financial strain would ease. You worry too much about money, she'd say when I mentioned our expenses. When people love, money not important. Love more important. She'd kiss my forehead and add, besides, I get better jobs soon. Help you more. I believed her because I needed to. The alternative that I was being played for a fool was too humiliating to consider. But late at night, alone in my hotel room while she was visiting family again, I'd stare at my dwindling bank balance and wonder what the hell I was doing. Then she'd call me the next morning, her voice full of love and longing, and all my fears would disappear. Good morning, my husband, she'd whisper, and I'd feel rich again. By the time I decided to extend my stay in Bangkok, I'd been sending money for nearly 2 years. $50,000. Enough to buy a decent car back home or put a down payment on a small house. Instead, I'd invested it all in a woman I saw maybe 2 days a week, who somehow always had mysterious obligations that kept us apart. I want to spend more time with you, I told her over dinner at our usual restaurant. Maybe I'll get an apartment here too. The look that flashed across her face, pure panic, lasted only a second before she composed herself. That wonderful idea, she said, but her smile looked forced. But maybe better you stay hotel little longer. My apartment very small, and I work so many hours now. I don't care about the space, I pressed. I just want to be with you more. We're supposed to be planning our wedding, right? Of course, she said quickly. But wedding planning very stressful. Need time to prepare everything perfect. You understand? I didn't understand, but I nodded anyway. Can I at least see where you work now? You said you got a better job. She'd told me she'd left the cafe for a position at an upscale restaurant, which explained why she needed nicer clothes, why she was working later hours. Restaurant very strict, she said. No visitors during work time. Maybe someday I show you. Someday had become her favorite word. Someday she'd introduce me to her friends. Someday I'd meet her family. Someday we'd live together properly. Someday we'd get married. I was starting to realize that someday meant never. But confronting that truth felt like admitting I'd wasted 2 years of my life and nearly all my savings on a fantasy, so instead I decided to surprise her. If she wouldn't bring me into her world, I'd find my way in myself. It seemed romantic at the time. Looking back, it was the beginning of the end. The night I followed her, I felt like a detective and a stalker all at once. I'd spent the day walking around Bangkok, working up the courage to do what I knew I had to do. She'd told me she was working late again, wouldn't be free until after midnight. Big party at restaurant, she explained. Many customers. Sorry, my love. But something in her voice sounded different. Rehearsed. I waited outside her apartment building, the one I'd never been invited to see, from 8 p.m. until nearly 11. When she finally emerged, she wasn't wearing the conservative black outfit she claimed her restaurant required. Instead, she was in a tight red dress that showed more skin than I'd ever seen her display in public. She looked beautiful. She also looked like she was going somewhere that wasn't work. I followed her taxi through Bangkok traffic, my own driver giving me curious looks in the rearview mirror. "Following your girlfriend?" he asked in English. "Something like that," I mumbled. We ended up in the Nana district, outside a bar called Heaven's Gate. I watched Thanyurat check her reflection in the window before walking inside. My hands were shaking as I paid my driver. This was it. Whatever was waiting for me inside that bar was going to change everything. I knew it with the same certainty you feel right before a car accident, that moment when time slows down and you realize there's no way to avoid the crash. I stood outside Heaven's Gate for 10 minutes, listening to the music and laughter spilling out into the street. Part of me wanted to turn around, go back to my hotel, and pretend this night never happened, but I'd already seen too much to go back to willful blindness. When I finally pushed through the doors, the first thing I saw was the neon lights reflecting off the polished bar. The second thing was Thanyurat, sitting on a man's lap at a corner table, her arms around his neck, kissing him like her life depended on it. The man was Thai, younger than me, with the kind of casual confidence I'd never possessed. They looked comfortable together, natural, like this wasn't their first time. I stood there watching them for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Then Thanyurat spotted me. Our eyes met across the crowded bar, and I watched her face cycle through emotions: surprise, fear, guilt, and finally, something that looked almost like relief. She whispered something to the man, who turned to look at me with mild curiosity, like I was an interesting piece of art. Then she stood up and walked over to me, her heels clicking on the sticky floor. "Patrick," she said, her voice steady. "What you doing here?" The conversation that followed was the most honest 3 minutes of our entire relationship. "Who is he?" I asked, nodding toward the man who was still watching us with amused interest. "He my boyfriend," she said simply. No excuses, no tears, no elaborate explanation. Just the truth. "Your boyfriend?" I repeated, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "But we're getting married." She looked at me with something that might have been pity. "No, Patrick. You not my boyfriend. You never my boyfriend." "Then what am I?" I asked, though I was starting to understand. "You nice man who send money," she said, "who help me and my family." "But Somchai," she gestured toward the Thai man, "he my real boyfriend. 2 years now. 2 years. The exact same time I'd been sending her money, believing I was building a future with her." "But you said you loved me," I whispered. "I said many things," she replied. "Because you want to hear. You lonely man need someone say nice words. I give you nice words, you give me money. Everyone happy. Everyone happy?" I could barely get the words out. "I gave you $50,000. And I give you 2 years of nice words and nice time," she said without a trace of guilt. "Fair trade." The casual way she said it, like she was discussing the weather, hit me harder than any scream or insult could have. I wasn't even worth getting upset over. I was just a transaction that had run its course. Did any of it mean anything to you?" "You kind man," she said, "really. But I need Thai man for heart, Western man for money. You understand now?" I understood perfectly. I understood that I was the biggest fool who'd ever stepped foot in Thailand. I understood that while I'd been dreaming of our wedding, she'd been laughing about the stupid Canadian who paid her bills. I understood that love, real love, can't be bought, no matter how much money you throw at it. I have to go, I managed to say. She nodded. Goodbye, Patrick. Thank you for everything. As I turned to leave, I heard her laugh at something Somchai said. It was a genuine laugh, full of joy and affection, the kind of laugh she'd never given me, despite all my money and desperate devotion. I spent the next 3 days in my hotel room, drunk and broken. I'd order bottle after bottle of whiskey from room service and sit by the window, watching Bangkok go about its business while my world crumbled. The math was simple and brutal: $2,000 a month for 24 months, plus deposits, visa fees, and expenses, nearly $60,000 total. My entire divorce settlement, most of my pension savings, and a chunk of credit card debt that would take years to pay off. All for a woman who'd never been mine, who'd played me like a piano from the very first day. I called my daughter Jessica on the second day, drunk enough to be honest. Dad? She said, surprised. It's 3 a.m. here. I fucked up, Jess. I slurred into the phone. I fucked up so bad. What happened? Are you okay? For a moment, I considered telling her everything. About Thailand, about the money, about how desperate and pathetic I'd become. But the shame was too overwhelming. Nothing, I said. Just having a rough night. Miss you kids. Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? I'm fine, I lied. Just take care of yourself, okay? And your brother. Don't make the mistakes I made. I hung up before she could ask more questions. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the realization that I'd been so desperate for love, so hungry for someone to make me feel important, that I'd ignored every red flag and rationalized every lie. Thanyurat hadn't seduced me, I'd seduced myself. I'd created an entire relationship in my head, casting her as the devoted girlfriend while she played the role just enough to keep the money flowing. On the third night, I finally stopped drinking long enough to think clearly. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through all our text messages, looking for signs I'd missed. They were everywhere. The vague responses to direct questions, the way she'd changed the subject whenever I talked about our future, the excuses that made just enough sense to be believable but never quite added up. I'd been living in a fantasy, and she'd been happy to let me, as long as the payments kept coming. Sitting in that hotel room, staring at my empty bank account, I had to face the truth about myself. I wasn't a victim of some elaborate con. I was a lonely man who'd mistaken financial dependency for love. Thanyurat hadn't lied to me about who she was. From the very beginning, she'd been exactly what she appeared to be, a young woman trying to survive in an expensive city, willing to provide companionship to a foreign man in exchange for financial support. I was the one who'd built it into something more. I was the one who'd convinced myself that our arrangement was a love story. I'd wanted so badly to feel needed, to feel important to someone, that I'd ignored the obvious truth. She liked me well enough, I suppose. I wasn't cruel or demanding. I was generous and kind, which probably made me easier to deal with than some of her other clients. But love, real, passionate, committed love? That was reserved for Somchai, the young Thai man who could offer her something I never could: a real relationship, a real future, a real emotional connection. The money I'd sent hadn't bought me love. It had bought me the illusion of love, and for a lonely man in his 50s, that illusion had been intoxicating enough to drain his life savings. I can't even blame her for taking it. If someone had been willing to pay me $50,000 to have dinner twice a week and send sweet text messages, I probably would have taken the deal too. The blame belonged to me for being so desperate, so willing to believe what I wanted to hear, so afraid of facing my loneliness that I'd pay any price to escape it. By the fourth day, the anger started to fade, replaced by something that felt almost like clarity. I wasn't angry at Thanyurat anymore. I was embarrassed, ashamed, and financially ruined, but not angry. She'd provided exactly what I'd paid for: companionship, affection, and hope. The fact that I'd built those simple transactions into a grand romance was my delusion, not her deception. Bangkok had taught me something valuable, even if the lesson cost me everything I had. Love can't be bought, respect can't be purchased. You can't pay someone to need you the way you need them, and most importantly, running away from loneliness by throwing money at it only makes you lonely and poor. So here I am, back in Canada, living in the same one-bedroom apartment I left 2 years ago, working part-time at a hardware store to pay off the debt I accumulated chasing a dream. My kids call more often now. I think Jessica sensed something was wrong that night I called her drunk. I've never told them the whole truth, but they know their father went to Thailand and came back humbled. I don't hate Thanyarat. I hope she's happy with Somchai. I hope the money I sent helped her family, helped her build a better life. In her own way, she gave me something valuable too. She showed me what it felt like to be wanted, even if that want was manufactured. For 2 years, I had someone to text good morning to, someone who seemed excited to hear from me, someone who made me feel like I mattered. It was fake, but it felt real while it lasted. And maybe, for a man as lonely as I was, feeling real was worth the price I paid. The hardest part isn't the money or the embarrassment. It's learning to live with myself again, knowing what I'm capable of when desperation takes hold. I thought I was smarter than the other Western men I'd heard about, the ones who got taken advantage of by young women in Southeast Asia, but intelligence has nothing to do with it. Loneliness makes fools of us all. I was just another middle-aged man who mistook financial transaction for emotional connection, who confused being needed for money with being needed for love. Bangkok didn't teach me how to find love. It taught me how to recognize the difference between love and the things we buy to fill the space where love should be. That's a lesson worth $50,000, I suppose, though I wish I could have learned it cheaper. These days, I'm learning to be alone without being lonely. It's harder work than sending money to a beautiful woman on the other side of the world, but it's honest work. And after 2 years of living a lie, honesty feels like a luxury I can finally afford. My name is Patrick Doyle, I'm 54 now, and this is my confession. I sent $2,000 a month for love, and learned that love was the one thing money couldn't buy me. But maybe, just maybe, that's the most valuable lesson of all.